Dan Crick, as president of AgriSA, once claimed that only mega farmers who employ more than 100 people can reasonably be expected to be exempted from the ANC's land expropriation agenda, while the rest should be content with whatever their fate may be. In fact, to quote Gabriel Krause from the Free Market Foundation, Crick went so far as to say that only the top 20% best producing farmers should be exempt, while the other 80% can be sacrificed on the altar of the ANC's politics. What this basically means is that he is standing for the mega farmers and saying the family farmers can be expendable. Today, AgriSA even actively defends the government's laws aimed at expropriating land without compensation against international scrutiny. It also defends this same government when it is responsible for allowing foot and mouth disease to devastate our country's farmers, even distancing themselves from other farming organizations such as SAI and other organizations such as Sakeliga, who are actually fighting for farmers' right to access their own much needed vaccines. And on top of that, AgriSA also actively promotes a historical narrative that paints the farmers of this country as illegitimate owners of the land they farm, thereby granting the very precedent for Cyril Ramaphosa's government's ongoing assault on private property rights. AgriSA may present itself as the guardian of farmers' interests, yet its public positions on the most important issues facing our country's farmers today tell a completely different story. In today's video, we are going to do a full expose on what AgriSA is, where they are from, and why they are continually stabbing our farmers in the back. You see, AgriSA is still South Africa's largest agricultural organization, although they might be overtaken soon by SAI. And how it basically works is that AgriSA is a culmination of many different branches all over the country, provincial branches and branches in different areas. And these branches are actually doing great work for the farmers, even though they do answer to AgriSA as a overarching umbrella organization. But most or many of these farmers have no idea about the ideology of the leadership of this organization and why this organization is stabbing them in the back. They just see them as an agricultural union. In this video, we want to tell the whole truth about AgriSA, from start to finish. AgriSA has long been advocating for the interests of the government over against that of its own members. It is now also defending the ANC's official positions on many different topics such as land expropriation and even farm murders, going against other organizations that are fighting for farm murders as a priority crime. This can largely be attributed to the fact that AgriSA does not believe that the farms owned by white citizens of this country are legitimately theirs, but are something they acquired through illegal dispossession through years of colonial practices. But how on earth did it happen that the organization representing more of the country's commercial farmers than any other right now is actively working against their own members' interests? Stay tuned, because in today's video, we will tell you the whole story of this farmers' union and how it became a tool in the hands of a government that is committed to destroying its very members. You see, AgriSA traces its origins back to the start of the British colonial rule over the territory that is today known as South Africa. It was founded in 1904, the second oldest agricultural union just behind the Transvaal Agricultural Union, as the South African Agricultural Union, or SAU, established right after the Boer republics lost the Anglo-Boer War. Its creation was intrinsically tied to the new British colonial reality that the peoples of this land faced, driven by the need to unify the various colonial and regional farmers' unions into a single national voice. At the time, many commercial farmers from the former British colonies of the Cape and Natal, as well as some of those from the former Boer Republic of the Orange Free State, sought coordinated representation on issues such as land policy, labor regulations, tariffs, infrastructure, and agricultural protection as a whole. The organization functioned as an umbrella body aligning a number of different unions under one national structure. At the time, the Transvaal Agricultural Union, which had been founded about 10 years earlier, back in 1897, when the Transvaal or the Suid-Afrikaanse Republiek was still independent and internationally recognized as a Boer Republic, opted not to join the new organization and remain independent as they are until today. The Transvaal Agricultural Union, or TAU, retained its independent regional and ethnic character throughout the entire 20th century, with its membership being made up exclusively by Afrikaners north of the Vaal River. While AgriSA's predecessor developed into a truly national agricultural organization, encompassing all the other different provinces. As such, it became more deeply integrated with government structures since the earliest days of South Africa. And as the government of the country changed to the ANC, well, it did too and followed suit. You see, in 1999, a few years after the ANC took over, the South African Agricultural Union even changed its name to AgriSA to reflect its ideological commitment to a more inclusive, multicultural South African dispensation. And since then, it has opted for a strategy that, to virtually the entire farming community, had been unthinkable just a few years prior. To align itself with the government that is ideologically rooted in a Leninist ideology and that views commercial agriculture on private land itself as a threat to the state. While it was ideologically aligned to the old NP or apartheid regime just before that, it just switched sides and changed its name almost overnight. Indeed, if we look at how different the ideologies they hanged on to after aligning itself with the new regime in South Africa, we see that Vladimir Lenin himself, on which the ANC based their agricultural policy, in 1918 ordered at least 100 commercial farmers to be executed to send a message to those who opposed the nationalization of collectivist farming of the process of the Bolshevik government at the time. Yet, as the ANC chief ideologue Joe Slovo pointed out in his 1988 book, The South African Working Class and the National Democratic Revolution, he outlines that his party, the ANC, is, and I quote, equipped with the theoretical tool of Marxist-Leninism and the inheritance of an unmatched wealth of revolutionary experience. Therefore, it is not immodest for them to assert that their party is uniquely qualified to, and I quote, help illuminate the correct analytical path. And yet, this ideology is the one that AgriSA has chosen to align itself with when it starts to align itself with the new government. Even though initially disagreements between the Transvaal Agricultural Union and AgriSA appeared less significant, pertaining to issues such as new labour laws introduced by the ANC as time went by, and the government made more and more inroads into its National Democratic Revolution, the differences between these two agricultural unions became very profound. In fact, AgriSA now openly tries to shield the government's expropriation policy against international criticism, even publicly pandering to a lying and debunked media narrative that land is supposedly not being expropriated here in South Africa, even though we all know that it is. Now AgriSA has gone even further and accused Donald Trump of spreading misinformation for saying that white farmers are being targeted systematically.
Johan Kotza is an Afrikaner who's head of South Africa's largest agricultural organization.
It's actually not about white genocide, it's about criminality in South Africa.
That's what's happening on farms, it's what's happening in streets in Johannesburg and other major cities. It's crime.
It's crime. The fact that it happened on a farm doesn't make me special as a farmer.
In a country where politicians who hold seats in parliament openly chant for the genocide of our farmers, AgriSA simply denies that there is a problem to begin with. And most recently, and perhaps the most shockingly, it has now also come out in favour of the horrendous and most destructive manner in which the Department of Agriculture under Steenhuisen has absolutely dismally failed to handle the ongoing foot and mouth epidemic in this country. AgriSA now has a long and established track record of positioning itself in favor of the interests of the government, mostly of the ANC, and against the interests of this country's farmers. And it does so consistently every time there is an issue. Its latest move to even distance itself from the legal action taken by the Free State Agriculture Union, which is actually a part of AgriSA, one of its provincial affiliates, with regard to the ongoing foot and mouth disease outbreak, is only the most recent manifestation of this pattern that we see AgriSA take again and again and again with expropriation without compensation and all the other previous positions of the ANC, starting with the draconian labor laws of the early 2000s. And so, while positioning itself as a voice for the farmers of South Africa, AgriSA's actual policies are ultimately determined by the interests of the government, along with the banks, agribusinesses, large corporates, and those who strategically align with the government and whose commercial interests radically diverge from those of the overwhelming majority of commercial farmers in this country, who are mostly smaller-sized family farmers and not mega farmers that align themselves with this whole dispensation in general. After all, these entities benefit from lending to farmers at higher interest rates, selling farming inputs at elevated prices, and buying agricultural output at lower margins. And it is these interests that ultimately shape AgriSA's policy positions on an economic front. There is simply absolutely no reason for commercial farmers in this country to retain their membership with AgriSA. Yet, many still do, out of tradition, because their fathers and their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers might have been members of AgriSA. Today, they are also. There are now two very strong, growing alternatives that actually do represent the interests of farmers. The Transvaal Agricultural Union, now officially the Transvaal Agricultural Union of South Africa under the leadership of Benny van Zyl, has expanded south of the Vaal River and has members across all of the country. Even though Benny van Zyl had been criticized heavily by farmers and specifically his own members for taking a much more neutral stance or lacking backbone, as they put it, with regards to the foot and mouth disease crisis. Of course, Benny van Zyl is a part of John Steenhuisen's task team fighting this foot and mouth disease, and he wants to retain that seat. But hopefully, very soon his eyes will open to the reality and realize that he is doing himself and his union no favors by taking this neutral stance, and he must pick a side himself. Secondly, there's the South African Agricultural Initiative under François Rousseau as CEO, which represents a massive growing number of commercial farmers in this country who have grown tired of AgriSA's pandering towards a government bent on destroying private property rights in this country. SAI themselves now sit at almost 14,000 members, which makes them very close to overtaking AgriSA as South Africa's largest agricultural union, and hopefully, finally, neutering this organization that is doing our farmers so much damage in this country to a position where it becomes irrelevant and nobody cares what AgriSA has to say when they endorse expropriation without compensation, or when they endorse the government's handling of the foot and mouth epidemic, and so on and so forth. In a recent video, we highlighted how Ackerland Farm in Limpopo became the first victim of the ANC's agenda to expropriate property without compensation. The very expropriation without compensation AgriSA denies ever taking place. This is the first example of proof that expropriation without compensation is taking place in this country, and the government had tried it in the past already. You can check out that full report by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right now. And please do consider supporting our work by becoming a paid member of the Willem Petzer Group. Only with our members' help investing in us are we able to make videos such as these every single day. Thanks for watching, goodbye, and God bless.